All right, welcome to For Whom the Cell Tolls. This is your host, Keenan, not joined today by Scout the Pomeranian. Don't worry, she's fine. But instead, joined by my cancer biology class from this semester, Fall 2020, Foreman State. How you guys doing? Yeah! Fun! So, a live audience podcast, always a risky maneuver, although I can always edit things if somebody says something bad. But what we have, everybody's laughing. But what we have here is a good opportunity to basically go through some of the bigger questions, what you learned, what you're hoping for, things like that. From now, I'd say, 10 of us that are fairly well-versed scholars in one of the more advanced systems of biology. So episodes in this have gone through some of the basic stuff that we've seen, which is like Warburg effect, evolution, tumor effect, a lot of CAR T stuff. It's mostly focused on like DLBCL like I do. I don't focus on single papers. I do try and do, as the audience knows, some broader stuff, and we can get into some of the stuff that we even talked about today, which was like sort of like treatment care, palliative, when those decisions happen. Anything like that is on the table here. So what did we do first last time was, and something I've always wanted to do on the podcast was, how would you structure an introductory biology class, but it's all based on cancer examples? So think of the major facets that you encountered in intro, right? You had to do metabolism, right? Would metabolism be more fun if it was framed as, oh, look, glycolysis does this, and it gets really bad? What other like avenues would you take in 105 and 106 if you could have your way, and if it was these examples? How would you lead? So you can just shout stuff out, and I'll say it for everybody. I don't know if I can use your legal names in this. So, Beth, what'd you just say? Don't give me a fake. Yeah, raise your hand if you want me to use your real name. Like nobody's gonna care. All right, so we got real names on the board. I usually draw cards in my classes to make people speak, but I'm gone now. I still have Keani's card and Shelby's. There you go. What would you guys say in like part of that intro like we did last time? It's fine.
Well, I never took bio 105 or only 106 here, okay. So I don't know what the actual intro bio is like. But I know in 106 we focus a lot on evolution, and I would find that to be fun, going on how genetic evolution through cancer phenotypes as it progresses or it gets killed off by the immune system or drugs would be fun to go over.
Yeah, definitely I would agree with that, especially on that first level when you learn Darwinian evolution of like, and in the population, one freak existed, suddenly the immune systems come through, kill everything except the weird one. And then, guess who comes through? Here we go. How could we add it? What would complicate that system for all the poor students, all the poor freshmen, you think, guys? What would be tougher because we're dealing with something that it's generations or mitosis, right? It's not normal, like meiosis stuff. What would you guys say?
Complication could arise from some of the mutations not being specifically genetic, some of them being either from issues during mitosis, like those misaligned breaks. You could also have the ones that are like epigenetic based, phenotypically different ones. That's another complication that can't be explained through Darwinian evolution.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm guessing this is I can see it picking it up, so that's good, so I don't have to repeat anything. But yeah, things get real complicated when each little organism, each little cell in the population takes on a strange, like, non-mutation, I changed, though, basically. I don't know if you guys did that, like, did that ever encounter in 105, like, a plasticity, where, like, it changes without mutating? You didn't get to that. Like, we got to that in, like, kind of genetics with epigenetics, I'd say.
There was, like, a slight touch on it in 106, but not much.
A ton. What other classes have touched on that sort of ability of life to just sort of acclimate very quickly, plasticity? Yeah, microbiology, microphys. What good examples from that do you guys have, you think? Just like organisms that suddenly, I don't know, yeah. No, it's okay.
I mean, there's tons of stuff with microbiology, stuff like that, because quorum sensing, they do that to change. They got the two-component system. They're taking in a bunch of different signals and stuff like that, so they can change through different responses to stress. So.
brings up a question I've wanted to ask too for all the microtypes in the room. Do you think a cancer cell better reflects a prokaryotic cell, like its ability to like move quickly and like be kind of messed up really fast?
Yeah.
You would agree. Who else would agree? How many of you guys? I mean, that's a tough question, actually. Yeah.
I was thinking that throughout the whole time of doing microphys, thinking that these two classes related pretty well with each other, even though they were so different.
Yeah. I'd say like, and then on that connection that makes me excited is like how like in 106, you guys probably did some like migration, animal moving type stuff, anything like that. Yeah, we kind of saw that, didn't we? It wasn't ideal.
Soil.
Yeah. They find things, and like remember with seed and soil, just because one lands doesn't mean that there weren't all those like ventures out there. I think we made that example where it was like the Polynesians, when they went out, a lot of them didn't hit anything.
And that makes me think of like chemotaxis as well with like bacteria and stuff.
Yeah, and like that ability to like, you kind of know where you're heading, but I don't know, it's somewhat unguided, which I found kind of scary as the tumor type of thing, but kind of odd that life still moves that way sometimes once in a while. So, awesome.
Did you guys go over like ecological niches in 105? Was that also more like 106?
I think those kind of
I think like ecology and niches were probably a lot of 106 type, like where it's like these species will thrive in this environment setup, and like I'd say that's the thing. I've definitely said this on here before, is the tumor itself is maybe even less than half the battle at this point, as it is the environment around it, setting the stage and seeing who shows up at that point. I'm trying to think any other 105 stuff. Genetics kind of talks for itself. Chemistry kind of talks for itself. I don't know. I'd say there'd be some fun stuff. I would say I'd like to teach like a 100 level cancer bio someday. I don't know. I think that'd be a little tough. It'd be so tough. I could. Yeah. Here is tumor. Yeah, I'm no disparagement, but it would be tough to lead a non-major class based on what I've seen and heard. I pass that room once in a while and I see a lot of phones, and I'm like, come on, like, just help the poor guy. Help the poor guy. Hear him trying. So, given that, we have a pretty diverse set of career phenotypes in here. We have pharmacists, dentists, pre-med, all kinds of stuff. What did you see in this class? Maybe it wasn't direct cancer stuff, or it could have been, that was like, interesting. Because different audience members of this are very much in your same boat. People that were like sort of pre-health type things, or are right now, and they may be seeking connections to what's bigger.
I think for me, in this class, is you start understanding that science also isn't just black and white. Because in working in healthcare, you see a lot of gray, but this is really the first time in like a lecture and classroom environment where I'm like, oh, this science is no longer just black and white. It's like mechanism A leads to results B. There's a lot of the physician making decisions, the patients, their family situation, financially, a lot of different factors that come into play now to depict what results come out. It's no longer just science anymore.
Yeah. And
I
yeah.
agree with that. I feel like I discovered the complexity of science, and that it's just not straightforward.
It's and that's the hardest thing, is like, remember when we started this class in like week 2, 3, and it was like, let's hammer it with more chemo, right? And let's get it. And that was the initial time that it was like, oh shoot, like there was so many relationships and like triggers and related stuff. Taylor.
For me, I feel like I learned a lot about how many different ways there is to treat things, because I did like an internship that was on like surgery, and then so like, all the physicians, their main goal was like, okay, you have this tumor, let's take care of it with surgery. But in this class, you learn there's so much more that you can do besides that, and I thought that was interesting.
County?
Since I'm going into medical laboratory science, I was most interested in the different ways you can kind of diagnose without just having a biopsy, not just the genetic side of it, but also the metabolites and different signals that are either sent out or encourage the tumor growth, being able to detect that in the blood or in different bodily fluids, and how that could help you actually diagnose cancer either with or without looking for it specifically.
agree. There's a lot of signals flying around the body just when it's healthy. Yeah, this was the first, Remember, when we were doing metabolism and it's like, oh yeah, what it spits out, that's what turns on all the genes and stuff. It was kind of messed up. Everybody affected everybody, unfortunately. It gets me back over here. So now that we've seen like the full like wheel basically of time, do you guys feel like the future of treatment is like bright or dim? Because if you could say it's dim because you're like, I recognize the power that tumors have, and I recognize that we may not have what it takes. Or you could say it's bright and say, we do have the tools to detect, treat, predict, anything like that. So where would you guys fall on that?
I think science-wise, it's bright. All of the more specific treatments that we've learned about and all that stuff seem very promising, as opposed to just blasting everything with chemo. But I think from like a healthcare standpoint, and like what we talked about today with money and all that stuff, I think that's kind of where we're hitting a wall in solving all those problems that come along with all these special treatments we've found.
I agree with that, especially like when I was doing our one assignment, I found an article on like cancer vaccines, like vaccines that'll like cure cancer. No, like I was like, I didn't read into it, but just like putting that thought into my head, I was like, how? I was like, yeah, just like that point of like, oh, here's a new way to treat it before it even starts. But I'm like, how do you do that when each and every tumor is different? And like knowing the science behind that and being like, would that really help?
Yeah, and that does get on, like, you always hear, like, articles will always take off where it's like, cancer vaccine will prevent it. We've all seen, what is the phrase? It's like the more you know, the angrier you get and the sadder you get because you're like, oh, that won't work. So basically kind of that idea. Bianca.
What is it we talked about how like evolution wants death over generations?
Yeah, the immune system.
So regardless of
Yeah.
cancer's the solution, if we solve that, something else is going to kill us.
Is there another wall no matter what?
Right.
Yeah. So even if we made cancer chronic, and I've mentioned that on here before, that has always been the plan financially as well. That is the one that makes the sense where it's like generics, A to B to C to D, can extend life, hooray. But like Bianca said, like we talked about with the immune system, and like we kind of saw with senescence, that is the wall that eventually, unless we figure that out, nothing's going to change. So the senescence is the thing that you hear about the anti-aging people. Like, I do this, I take 1,000 supplements. That is aimed primarily at stopping that. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Money typically associates with better healthcare outcomes regardless. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens on that phase. Malcolm, I thought you were thinking of saying something. No, never mind. We could point out on the podcast we have an award-winning sportsman in the conversation today. Woo! The team can post it. Anyway. Yeah. But even in all my grimness and my like respect for the disease, I definitely still feel as though like where I've mentioned my PhD advisor Michael Green before, and he's this genius and he's figured it out. He was the first one to tell me, we will figure this out chronically. We can do that. And even though that's not as attractive for patients and funding, making cancer chronic eliminates what we saw today with that hospice end of life, the whole bad part. So that's an aim for now, and we can definitely do that paired up with some stuff. I was also thinking this is kind of a screwy question here. Given all you know now about cancer epidemiology, causes, anything, let's say that you're the president now. What would you do? If you were just like, I'm a dictator now, I'm gonna solve cancer. What am I gonna do public health wise? What can people no longer do? What can we no longer eat? I'm going a little crazy here. More exercise. All right, March.
Well, since I'm an administrator, I'd pawn that off on you.
Oh no! So once you're president, you become an administrator and get some multiple vice presidents, and they'll choose.
That's why we have the Secretary of Health and all that.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you find people to do your job. Perfect. This is good. That's kind of like what I'm doing for you guys right now.
As not a dictator,
Yes.
I will go after private health care.
Okay.
I I despise those companies, and they need someone to take them
Yeah,
down.
let's take out the sectors.
So yeah, I think we got a pretty good audience in here for let's tear it down. Hi, listeners. Anyway, don't worry, we're fine. No, everybody's safe. But fair point. Where it is, hey, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, and I'll say it right here. I got friends that work in the insurance business, and I'm like, where's all this happening? Where's all this coming from, man? And I get that there's plenty of things about a central government that are slow, bureaucratic, badly managed, et cetera, et cetera. But there's plenty of things that aren't terrible, right? If any of y'all have friends that are that do the VA stuff, there's good and bad things about it. But I know that my friend in the Navy, he's like, man, this is nice. This is well run. This is because you got on that end, you have the emotional support of like, how dare you ruin our veterans, right? How dare you leave these people behind, right? That emotion brings more money and more votes than logic does. That will be the case as we keep going to say, like, whatever case you ever want to make, don't ignore that side of things. There's too many good data graphs that have gone unnoticed because you didn't have a good story behind things. You didn't have any soul behind it, to say the least. So, now that we've made the U.S. a dictatorship where we're going to eliminate cancer piece by piece, and we're going to exercise, and we're going to eliminate the insurance evils, which I think you get a lot of people on board with that. I'm not going to lie. I'd say one of the other things that is unique is me as a millennial. You guys are all Gen Z, I believe. I don't think I'm stretching that. I'd say our generation's the main thing we differ on. It's not smoking. It's alcohol, I think. Where I do think my generation...
I would argue that it would be like vaping.
That you guys brought vaping back. The millennials are the perfect generation, and I'm right.
No.
No. Don't ignore that. We're going to edit that out. The vaping, so you guys know better than me. The vaping is out of hand? How many people, okay, let's say we have a sample of 25 of us in here. How many of your peers out of that 25 you think are pretty chronic e-vapors? 5 to 10 to 15?
A majority.
I think it's alarming.
What the? How?
At the point where most of them are stopping, but
Okay, so you are getting,
Yeah, I think it's alarming
okay.
how young people are starting.
it's a young thing. Like,
That used to
I mean,
be-
I was vaping when I was like 14.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Not
It's-
anymore.
That's
Not
good. Hey,
anymore.
you kicked it though. That's good though. That is, because like the generations before us, hey, freaking smokers all the way. Even if a lot of Gen X's are sort of those social smokers where they don't really do it a lot, it's hard to quit. So kudos on that, but naughty for doing it. You got
I
any?
have a comment. It's kind of going past vaping a little bit. The even younger generation, or even younger Gen Z to Gen Alpha, are actually getting into whippets. They're really
What?
getting it. Yeah, there's like a whole thing called Galaxy Gas,
Yeah.
where they sell giant tubs of
Oh.
nitrous oxide at smoke shops now.
What?
Yeah, like there's like giant.
You mean like the circus nitric oxide, like how we used nitric oxide initially, and like we'll talk about this in farm. Nitric oxide was the initial anesthesia, but it was a circus joke at first. Dudes would fill it up and they'd run around, and like I said in class, I think we talked about it once, dude fractured his leg on nitric oxide, and a dentist happened to be in the audience and be like, huh, because the guy just kept running and laughing. Huh, so apparently nitric oxide is back on the menu,
Yeah,
boys.
they're like in
Okay.
these giant containers now.
Is it, wait, it's fake or no?
No, it's real.
Oh.
It's in these giant containers in a bunch of different flavors.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That
they're
cannot
flavored.
be legal. What is going
How is
on?
that legal?
It's sold as a culinary like add-on. Like they say it's
Oh,
used
boy.
to make whipped cream, like you would use nitrous oxide little cans to make
Yeah,
whipped
it's
cream,
probably-
but it's in like a
Yeah.
liter size.
Sell it to
container.
aerosolize your own things or whatever.
All right, so we added more problems just now. The dentist had enough to worry about with the constant vaping. Enjoy that bad breath when that happened. Oh, sorry. Yeah, anyway, just saying. Shelby, you were going to mention?
Yeah, I was gonna, maybe an unpopular opinion, but I also think weed has become
I
really
was gonna say the
popular
same
with the
thing.
younger generations as well, especially with like medical marijuana and recreational weed approved in a lot of states now. When I was home for Thanksgiving, actually, my aunt was talking about how my 14-year-old cousin
Oof.
isn't friends with this one kid anymore because he's selling weed.
14, huh?
14-year-old, yeah.
I mean, I remember that when it was illegal and it was like, hey, so-and-so's got like some bud over there, but like, what? It's reversed again? But it's legal, but it's not? But what's happening?
Well, I'm from North Dakota, so it's illegal there.
Oh, it's still legal, okay.
It's still legal in North Dakota, but like a 14-year-old was like selling and like kids are like doing weed. And
So
I definitely feel like
it's not only
weed has-
that, it's how potent it's gotten. Back
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
my parents
no,
were doing
yeah.
it was at the lowest level, and now they have it where it's almost like pure THC.
Yeah.
So
There's
Yeah.
also a thing where I noticed in South Dakota specifically, since dispensary weed is actually cheaper than getting normal street weed.
Yeah.
People will buy dispensary weed and then sell
Ah.
that out. So you're getting even stronger stuff on the streets because it's the stuff meant for
What a
legal
strange, yeah, it's such a strange dynamic. And like, I think I've said it before on this, so I'll say it now, but like, I'm from Colorado. I tried it a couple times as a kid. My mind didn't go to a good place either time, so we don't do it again. I wasn't happy. I'm not gonna lay. Let's say in a hypothetical scenario, I ate a brownie once. I didn't know what was in it with my brother-in-law, and I asked my wife how to get on high, because it was about double what, yeah. That was all right. I was pretty harmless. It kind of ruined my night, and I ate a bunch of cereal, but what are you gonna do? Now, that was the hypothetical if that had happened.
Yeah.
Regardless. So,
there's so many hypotheticals.
so many hypotheticals in this room. So, each generation does have its vice, et cetera, et cetera. Now, back to the cancer idea. Yeah, perhaps we would see a spike. We would see declines in certain areas, et cetera, things like that. We do have a pre-vet person in the room, so I did want to mention, because most dogs and cats do die from cancer. Do you think the foods have to change? But how can they? Because what was the first thing Monica even said? And she loves her dogs. Was first thing out of a vet's mouth is usually like, "Sorry, this costs so much." But would you change? How would you change the
It's hard
food?
with food because they take one class on diet.
Really?
They don't know anything about foods. They know some. They're not
Right,
heavily
but-
trained on food, diet. So it's difficult in the vet field. A lot of vets don't know a lot outside of prescribed food. But yes, it does have to change. I know that there's different ways you can get information about the dietary aspect of veterinary care, but I've heard a lot of bad things about what's in it, and it's not the main focus, and I think it does need to be.
Like, kind of big part of a conversation that's tougher to have, though, talk to enough people that are dog people, and they'll be like, you need like training and a license before you should buy a dog, basically, or get a dog. But then there's the
about the teeth.
yeah, got to take care of them teeth and dogs. Dang it, because that's how it gets them. I guess then that millennials' main vice, maybe this is just me in Western Colorado talking, would be chewing tobacco, I'd guess. And now it's different because the pouches are just sort of there and it's just nicotine. So it's like, it's not as much fiberglass, so good for everybody. I don't know. We'll see how this all goes. But nicotine's coming back in a big way. It's like, oh, I'm sharper, I'm better. That was never the ad back in the day with chewing. It was just supposed to look Western and like you're a cowboy. Yeah.
Do you know if your generation is getting into Zyn? Because I know that ours is.
Yeah, they are too. They marketed that really well because it was like, oh, harmless, like no fiberglass, no. And like, again, not to point myself out as a scumbag, but like I've had Zyns and I've had regular tobacco and like, ugh, this regular tobacco is nasty. I'm not a hard dog. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Swallowing long cut ain't very good.
Yeah, that's not good. I know that what my dad said like back in the day was like everybody was chewing, for example, because it was like that was their answer to smoking. It was like smokeless. You're fine. But I know that his football coach caught them once chewing during practice and he was like, no, it's fine. Just swallow it. I don't think that probably does great for your gut microbiome, speaking of. Ooh, that'd be bad. Yeah, that'd be rough. Regardless, I would kind of getting on that, and I would kind of carve up microbiome being the first easy one of these to say. What is something about cancer care, treatment, hallmarks, doesn't matter, that people don't talk about enough that you feel like after this class you're like, oh shit. Diet and how that affects immunity, microbiome. And I've done a brief thing on it, but I learned a lot getting ready for this class specifically. how much bigger the microbiome thing goes. And there was that slide specifically where it was like, if the oral bacteria get in and they go down and they inflame everything, war's on, basically. Because they're an odd bunch that can live up there, and if they can kind of mess everybody up down there. Got it?
I think the problem with the diet comes with the way people talk about it now is only against obesity, which turns most people off, because a lot of people who are overweight or obese, the second your doctor tells you to change your diet, and they're thinking it's just because I'm overweight and they're not going to want to do it. Well, the microbiome aspect of it and feeding your gut biome with the food choices you make, not just like the amount of fat or the amount of sugar, but like why it does this and why certain food types and why you have to be in moderation with all the other food groups. That isn't talked about that much. It's just suggested you should eat this amount of stuff and you need to change your diet if you're overweight, which really turns off a lot of people and gets people to stop thinking about diet as like an actual helpful way to either prevent cancer or other diseases, because a lot of stuff could be prevented with a better diet.
Because it is, I will say, like it's kind of like a big full circle type of thing when it is just like, okay, so if the first clinical sign is somebody is large, the first symptom, basically first thing a lot of physicians will do is be like, start exercising and start eating like this. Because of that, like Yanni said, you're going to lose some of the aspects why in each case. As dental people too, you got to get across why to do some of these things too. Why to floss, why to do that, why not to get cavities, because what are some of the consequences when that does go bad? Because it goes in the brain and it goes down there and it makes your whole life messed up and bad. Yeah, it just kills you straight up. And that autoimmunity, there's nowhere worse autoimmunity can happen and chronically just nail you. So, Hannah, you haven't done anything yet. How as a pre-dental person what was something like that you would say we should have, I don't know, what did I say? Should have focused on more as like, not in class, but like people didn't realize like that was kind of a connection basically.
Well, like, I guess I don't know as much from like a cancer perspective, but like talking about like the microbiome and stuff like that with like your mouth, because people don't really consider like recession and infection in like your mouth as like a big health hazard because they can't see it. Like when I have like patients at work, when we tell them, we see an X-ray, we explain that they have an infection in their tooth, they're like, oh, it'll be fine. But like you have to explain it to them in a different way. So like my scenario that I use is if I were to like cut your arm and you see it turn green and pussy, it's gonna catch your attention a lot more. And so I was like, okay, imagine that, but it's in your head. And then people start to realize like, okay, this is a bigger issue. And then there's like a whole bunch of different issues that can happen if you have an infection in your brain or in your heart, and then it's kind of like past what we can do at the dental office.
And that's,
People where we've had to send them to the emergency room like right away from like our chair because they weren't sure if they're gonna make it for the next week because they were so infected and they're like pus coming out down. They're all swollen down their neck, and you can see all the
Really?
lymph nodes are swollen.
Oh my God, it gets that bad? Like it's like the frog boiling temperature raising analogy where it's like, I just feel bad every day, but it's just a little worse every day, so I don't know, basically. Ugh.
Yeah, I've had a patient before where she was like mid-40s, and there's some people that still have like the stigma where they're like afraid of the dentist. And so she came in, she had a really bad infection, and that she had her whole side of her face was swollen, under her tongue was swollen, and she had swelling down her neck, and she still refused to go, because at that point we couldn't even do anything for her, she needed to go to the hospital, but they still refused to go just because the thought of something scary, people will still avoid going
Yeah.
to it.
Kind of goes back to our emotion versus logic play in healthcare a little bit. Yeah, because we did not understand the dental care thing with our first dog, like at all. We finally fixed his teeth when he was 14. He probably had 2 years after that where he just like came back to life. Could do his walks, could do everything. That was the first time I was like, dang. And I like went in down the hole where you're like, yeah, like the inflammation carries over into systems in the heart, in the brain, all over. And it's like, people are just like, well, I don't like flossing. So your public health challenge is your biggest one coming up. But that's also the reason, like, I don't know, hopefully smaller pieces like something like this class still build that picture. But
Yeah, you don't like flossing, I'm sure you wouldn't like your teeth falling out.
Same, yeah. I'm gonna go floss tonight, I think. I'm getting a little scared. It's been like 5 days. All right. Very bad. Yeah. If Chase is listening, don't listen to what I just said. All right. So, I guess the finale for everything is, what other questions do you have? What should we have focused on more? I mean, you technically ran out of time. We technically hit all the hallmarks, though. We did it. That was good. And there only used to be 10 hallmarks 5 years ago. Now there was 15. We added 5 more. But what should we have done more?
I think we covered a lot of good topics. I think something that would have been more interesting would be if we learned more like case studies, but like not necessarily as like assignments, but like if we talked about them like in class about different like when you go over different like cancers, like if you would find like a story about like a patient that had this or something that you can relate to from your research.
I was thinking the same thing where it was like we didn't have the chance to kind of explore what each cancer type story, kind of how it goes, what the plot is for each one is what I would say. And that's,
yeah. Really hits home too. Like when you talk about a cancer, we see it on paper, but we don't like associate it with necessarily being human until you see a person who is actually fighting it.
And that can be one of the tougher things. Because I think the way I would do it differently. So like the exam, for example, won't have like a big case study question this round. We'll just do regular. Which Joey was excited about. Kyle. She's like, yes, no teams. I know, it's fine. Those, I think, if I ever led this class again, I would try to do that in class more and do something closer to that. Shelby?
I would say maybe go more into like how different cancers affect the body differently. Because like we went over like the general effects that cancer has, but like for personal experience, when my brother had leukemia, like his symptoms were a lot different, and like how his body was affected was a lot different than like my grandma, who's currently going into breast cancer treatment. Like it was just a lot different because it's different systems of the body. Yeah,
and I think, and the one thing that I'm biased on that point too is that if I ever do remake this class, I may. This gets complicated with how you can make the classes at MSU. They have to be somewhat specific. I would maybe just do it as a blood cancer class, even though that leaves out a lot of fun stuff. I would then technically just be in my expertise and just focus on a few, like that story would get a little narrower, which wouldn't be a bad thing technically. Bianca? Yeah, that's actually been the dream, is to add a lab to this. I'm not going to disparage affordability and state budgets because we are thankful to our overlords that give us our budget. But probably for a lab we would need. So I could get my cells, we could have them one amount of FBS is about $550, and that's it. That's the budget. So someday I think what we'll try is I'll try and get a grant someday and say I could get this up and running, and we'd go from there. But because I think we tried to do that a little bit with like the fun like fake labs that we did. Because I mean 3 hours is a long time to have a class, so hopefully it was fun. I've never had cheers before when we got the rats out of the bags and everybody's like, yes, we're taking this thing apart. It was good. We had a good time. They were just gonna sit in the freezer. It was. Oh man, poor guys. Like I said, I told you guys, I was like, I'm not a dissector person. I learned my lesson in college. I was like, I'm done.
I honored that rat.
Yeah, that was good. That's what you got to do for them. Yeah, I mean, they taught us plenty on it. I mean, it's the best you can do for them. I don't know, yeah. Animals in the lab for me are always a tough case, but they propelled a lot of what we saw in here. Like there wouldn't be another way. So that sacrifice is definitely something to appreciate.
They are rats.
What, rats?
I said they are rats.
They are rats, that's fair, yeah. My wife hates mice and rats. She's like, icklet, kill it. And I was like, they're already dead. It's okay.
Better to be diseased.
I know, pestilence. Regardless, so hopefully, I think we have an exciting thing ahead of us with treatment, cancer, learning more. The final question would be, if another hallmark ever does pop up, what do you think it's going to be? That's a tough one, though. I don't know. That is the question I'll leave on. I don't know. I'll write down some notes on my own, but
Is there a hallmark on how likely a cell can mutate? So like these cells have a higher tendency to go haywire.
It's like maybe genomic instability hallmark would like eat that up though, maybe. But that's a good point. Like there's only certain cells. And I've harped on that in this because I'm a B cell guy. Yeah, B cells are the only one that hypermutate. They're way better than the T cells.
Or is there a hallmark on how easily it can invade the immune system? Because we're trying to involve our immune system with CAR T essentially. So
Right.
is there a way that tumor cells are going to learn to outsmart the immune system through their
Like
hallmarks?
almost like I'm viewing it as like a hallmark will become, I don't know if this is fair, but like just resistance capability, maybe?
Yes.
I don't know, like
I don't
resistance
think
to
it's smart.
standard. No, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like, but that's so broad because it's a lot of the others like enveloped in one.
Yeah, it feels like that's like more like a
Scary idea.
subcategory.
Yeah, I feel like I'm cheating. Yeah,
I
I
have
don't
a
know.
scary idea.
What's the scary idea?
A hallmark that pops up of transmissibility.
Ah,
Oh.
What is it? Oh,
like
spread,
Being able to
yeah,
spread
like it would
cancer.
if it's spread.
COVID
Ew.
Whoa.
Transmit. Yeah, because we only briefly talked about it, right? Where it was like some stem cell cancers, like if it touches you, it's on. Like we're going. Ugh, I don't like that. Now he's on the right. No, he's not. He's not wrong. We know that there are certain things that are transmitted that do trigger the cancers, right? There's associations with viruses, specific bacterias. So, what did we talk about briefly with microbiome? You probably share the same microbiome as the people you live with. Thus,
Don't put that in my head.
hensely, and thusly,
Or,
you may, those aren't real words, by the way, you may set the stage similarly, purely based on your environment and the genes that are given to you by your environment, by the species inside you.
Instead of cancer being transmissible from person to person, which is terrifying, what if cancer could literally transform your cells? Like not as a cancer cell just metastasizing, but like actually altering another cell just by being close to it or by interacting with it in some way. Like changing a healthy heart cell into a new type of cancer cell.
Yeah.
Based
Ugh.
off of.
Yeah, so a step further than, hey, a macrophage showed up, now it's dumb. Like we've turned it into an M2, but further saying like, ooh, that's like the movie The Thing. Where, there you go.
Like the thing, but cancer.
Ooh, like it. Ooh, yeah, you'd have to change all kinds of. You'd have to like remake its epigenome, but like exactly right, like almost like a prion being a cancer cell. Like you fold this way now. Ooh, a cancer prion, that's nasty. All right, yeah, I'm thinking of all these terrifying scenarios now. This has got dark quick. We got to think of something fun. All right. All right, yeah. Scout co-host and Ranger co-host are not here today, but we had multiple people here today that contributed a lot more actual auditory good information and thought. No offense to Scout and Ranger. They're both very smart and cute. But thank you guys so much. Hooray. I'll clap for you. See you guys next episode. Thanks for listening.